Today we're going to talk about how to use FreeShow as a lower thirds option for you in your Switcher Studio. So the first step is we want to open up our FreeShow app, and we're going to go to our settings. And in our settings, we're going to go to the styles option, and we're going to create a style that has a green screen as the main backdrop. All right. And I've made one here. I called it transparent lower thirds, but I'm going to show you how to recreate this so that you can simply do exactly what I did. So we're going to call this one switcher lower thirds. All right, so I got my switcher lower thirds. I want the background color to be green because we're going to use chroma key, and I'm going to select the green here. So there's a few different greens. I just picked that first one there, and it actually works the best to me. We don't need to add any media, so you can leave that blank. The transition options, you don't have to worry about any of that right away. And then the media fit, none of that needs to be worried about. But the active layers, you want to make sure that you disable any background options because this is going to be our main background all the time. All right, that's going to be key for using this simply as a lower thirds. Okay. And then override slide with template. This is an option that you need to have, and you need to have made some lower thirds options that don't have the color green in them. All right. So typically that's going to be white text. And so what I've done is I've got a lower third lyrics transparent here that I've made, and that's just a template. You can look at another video on how to make those templates and edit them. And then we got the override scripture with template as well. So we're going to override our scripture. So whenever we put up a scripture in FreeShow, we want it to be overwritten to show just the lower thirds with a with white text as well. So I'm going to scroll down to where I can see something that shows this is lower transparent, and this is a scripture because I've got it with the little scripture reference there, and I've made that one as well as a template. So I can click on that, and now I've got lower transparent and lower transparent 2, lower lyrics transparent 2 as my override slides, and I've got this set to a green background with the background being an inactive layer. Okay, it's not active, but the slides, which is the text, that's active, and the overlays is active. Now, the other cool thing is you can set how many lines you want to show. So we're going to set this to be no more than 2 lines per slide. All right, so this is what we need to do in the styles. Now we will go to our output. We will go to our active output, and we would select which one is active. And right now I've got this one active. It's called the stream output. You can make your own output to whatever you want to call it. So if I were going to do that, I would go here and I would say normal. And we will name this one switcher LT for lower thirds. Okay. So now I've got this switcher LT for lower thirds here, and I'm going to use a style, and we call the style switcher lower thirds. So I'm going to pick that style, and notice it turns a green screen just like I had before, right? So we're just mirroring that or mimicking that. And I'm going to go with that back to that stream one. I'm going to deactivate that output because we don't need it. We're going to just be using our switcher that we just created from scratch, right? And then we got to choose our windows. All right. So for the windows, I'm going to go back to my window settings, and I'm going to change something here because well, I'll take that back. We don't need to change anything. Let's go to here, and I've got my windows here. I can select which one is which by hitting this little magnifying or see which one is which. I want to go to window number 2 is where I want to output this. All right. Now, we don't need to turn on NDI for this output. That would be nice. I have not seen how to do that in Switcher. For whatever reason, it's not an option. Even though if I look it up online, AI says it is available. I couldn't find how to connect it through NDI. But we've got this set up for our shows in FreeShow. So let's go to an actual service here. I just need to find something. Here's a FreeShow Friday. Planning for FreeShow. Let's see here. Here's one with some scriptures. Here's another one with some scriptures. And I'm going to go to the scripture because what you'll probably end up doing if you're using um, Switcher with it, you're going to probably end up using finding the scriptures really quick down here. And so if I go to, let's change this template on the scripture side, we'll make it be a, let's see here. Let's do big with no box for our scriptures. So to look like this, typically, if we were showing in-house, for example, we would probably have another one if we're going to be showing these in-house. But if we're just showing them on switcher for the lower thirds, you could do that. But if you're going to be using this in-house, let's set up another output to kind of mimic what would be reality, to me at least. So I'm gonna go to my primary and I'm gonna turn that on. So we got two outputs now. So if I go back to my show, we got our primary output and we got our switcher lower thirds output. So if I double click on this, you're gonna see that this is what people will see in-house. And then this is what people will see on switcher, but we're going to make a few changes. All right. We're going to make a few changes to that. So let's go back out. And I think for that lower thirds, the text is really small. So I'm going to go to my templates and I want to go to my scripture defaults. And this is the lower third transparent. And we're going to make this a little bit bigger at the bottom. So I'm going to right click on it. This is how you would edit your templates, right? So I'm right clicking on this. It's defaulting. Let's see here. This text defaults to 55. I'm going to make it a little bit taller. I'm just going to drag this box up and I'm going to make this one be a little bit bigger as well. It's defaulting to, this text is defaulting to 40. Okay. Let's make it a little bit bigger. And we will make this be like that. We'll make this be like so, 56, 55. And I'm just trying to make sure it's going to be big enough for people to see it on the show. And then I'm going to go back and notice everything kind of adjusted. Now, the key part for the template for me is when I right click on this and edit, making sure that everything is set to shrink to fit. Okay. And so this is set to shrink to fit here. And then if I click on this box, it's set to shrink in auto size as well, which is shrink to fit. Okay. That's important because you don't want it to be something different. All right. So now I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to my scriptures. I'm gonna pull this window or this drawer up just a bit. And in here, you got options. So I can show different things in my scripture. So I've got it to where it shows the reference. I can turn that off if I wanted to. I can turn that on. It's got show the version. You can't turn it off if you turn on show reference. All right. And that's because I'm using New American Standard Bible down here. If I go to one that I've downloaded, all right, you can actually adjust it to where it doesn't show the version. All right. So these are downloaded Bibles. So I can turn that off. And all it'll do is just show the reference in terms of what book of the Bible, what scripture number, or in terms of verse and chapter. All right. So if I double click here, you'll see that it shows up Genesis 1:6. That's on the main screen. If I go here, it shows up with Genesis 1 and let's see, did I say 1 or 1 and 8? I'm sorry. And this is Genesis 1 and 8 as well. They're the same content. I got this set to where the verse color number is sky blue. We're going to turn that to where it just stays white. All right. Let's turn that back on and you'll see here the verse number reference stays white. And that's Genesis 1:9 now. And if I click on this one, this is what we're going to be sending the script to switcher. And this is Genesis 1:9 as well. Now it is a little less bold. So I'm going to make these verses bold and I'm going to make them not have that shadow on it. So we're going to go to templates again. We're going to edit this. I'm going to select here and I'm going to make all this text bold. And we're going to go down to the shadow options and it's got a shadow on. I'm going to blur it a little bit more. Okay. And that way we can see it a little bit better. And so it'll look something like that. Let's turn the offset here. That's fine. Offset Y. We'll turn them both to 1. And then on this, we'll turn them to 1 as well. Turn the blur up to 5. All right. And it'll look something like that. All right. So now we got everything in bold. That's great. And so when we click it, not that one, we'll go down, we'll go back down here. We'll go to another verse here. And so now it's a little bit easier to read that. And it's been easy enough to read this part here. All right. So that's fine. Let's go to now adjust in switcher. All right. To get started, we've got to open up the switcher app. So I'm going to click down here. And then we're going to get the option for video library and things like that. I'm going to click on the left side where it says record video because I'm not going to go live right away. And then we got horizontal versus vertical. I'm going to keep it at horizontal and then click enter studio. And this is the default. I've just downloaded the free trial for Switcher so I can actually create a video. This is my iPad camera that you can see me waving my hand in front of. And now everything is ready. We just now got to go to the bottom where the little camera icon is here near the middle of the screen. And we've got to get some sources, right? And so I can go to add source. But before I do that, I'm going to go to my computer and get the sources ready. Okay, so we're back to our desktop. Now we're going to go to the Switcher um, Cast app. So I had to download Switcher Cast. So you go to your computer, to the internet, and download that. And when I go to Switcher Cast, it brings up this menu here. It defaults to where this is not on. And so now I'm going to go back to my Switcher app on my iPad. All right, so we're in the Switcher Cast app on my computer, and I've got Switcher open on my iPad. When I click on the little video icon now, though, check out what happens. I've got display 1 on Gary's MacBook Pro, display 2 on Gary's MacBook Pro, and then I've got my FaceTime HD camera on my laptop, my iPhone, because I've got it connected to my laptop wirelessly. And I've got an OBS virtual camera option as well. And so what we're going to do is we don't need to do necessarily anything in the uh, computer here on the SwitcherCast, but I do want to make sure that my OBS is set up properly to where my outputs, so that primary output, I'm going to make it be an invisible window so it doesn't automatically show up. I don't need it to share the screen right now, but that's because I don't have two extra monitor or an extra monitor to send it to. But I do want to make sure that my switcher lower thirds is going to the proper monitor that I'm going to share, which is my display number 2. So I'm going to click on display number 2 on the iPad. So I click on display number 2 and notice that it pops up and asks me to accept because I did not say automatically accept request. So I select accept, and then you'll see that particular option here. And I was looking up how to record my screen with the microphone. So if I click on that, you'll see that's my second display. All right. I can go back to my main display here, or first camera on my iPad here. And now we're going to actually launch FreeShow. So I'm going to go back to my computer, and you would have somebody at your computer or at their computer running all the scriptures and things like that. So I'm going to go to a new scripture, and I'm going to turn on the presentation mode and just click on present up here in the upper right corner. And now I've got the screen, but it's all green. I know that's weird, right? It's kind of weird, but let's do what we got to do to make this work in the iPad. So the first thing you do is you want to hold down on that input number 2, and it's going to pop up an option to say edit properties. So we're going to click that. And then it gives us some options for framing and then layering. This is the key. So I'm going to select overlay, and you notice immediately you see the gray boxes. That means it's transparent. And then I'm going to go back to framing at the top there, and I'm just going to click that first icon to make it be big. And then we're going to go down to enable chroma key. And it defaults to being the color green, which is exactly what we want. And I don't need to make any changes here because everything looks just fine to me. So I'm going to say done. And then everything goes black, nothing's there. But I'm going to go to back to my soundboard here. This is my iPad camera, right? So this is me. If I tap on that particular second input, now I've got scriptures popping up. So now let's look at FreeShow, and let's go to another scripture, and I can double click and you'll see that it changes. I'm going to the next verse in Genesis chapter 1, and it goes to Genesis 127, 128, it goes there, 129, and it goes there. So you can literally have that happen. And then if you want to add your songs, you can do the same thing. And so this is the lyrics to a song, and it shows your lyrics to your song while you're showing your video. This could be the pastor or the worship team singing, obviously, and things like that, but it's showing up seamlessly. And that particular input number 2 is showing up as a overlay now. So it's not set up as an input. So I can switch it to any other image. I can switch it to this little default grass blowing around and have that be back there if I wanted to. And I can go back to verses and show scriptures there. All right. And that'll be there as well. And so you can see all of those different things. I can go to, let's see here. I'm gonna go back to an image. You might have an image there, or go back to your video and you can see the video going there. And that's my soundboard. All right. And so you can see that it's actually live. I'm moving sliders up and down, and you can see that that's a real video playing. All right. So that's how you would use Switcher with FreeShow to show your lower thirds. And let's recap just quickly. We had to set up a style that had a default green background. That's important. And then we had to make sure our slide just showed no background, but the slides were showing and the overlays. And then I set my line default to 2. This affects your slides, but it does not affect your scriptures. Okay. So I want it to be no more than 2 lines at the bottom when it comes to the lyrics and any sermon notes or anything like that that are just typed out notes or text. It'll just be no more than 2 lines there. But the scriptures will show the full scripture because I have it set to show 1 verse per slide. And that's in my scripture settings. And then here, override slide with a template. I've got a transparent lower third lyrics option set up that I made that is here, and you'll see it here just as text there, but it's bold and it's at the bottom of the screen. And then I made an override for scriptures to be something similar, but it's going to have the scripture along with a reference to that scripture as well. So there's a box for that in the template, plus a box for the scripture in the template as well. And that's selected here. All right. So I'm going back out. So we did all that to set up the actual slide style. And then we went to outputs and we made a new output, and I called it switcher lower thirds. And then I went to my style and I selected that switcher lower third style. I enabled it. I picked a screen, and it was good to go, and it's showing up there as the green piece. So when you're at when you're at your computer, it's going to always look green, but the people on Switcher are going to see it as an overlay because we set up in Switcher. We held down on that particular input and we went to edit properties. Okay, we hit edit properties. We turned on the framing to be full screen on that first row. We turned on the layering option to be overlay. And then we went all the way down to enable chroma key, and it's defaulting to green, which is the same color that we've got as our default for the background on FreeShow. And that is how you will get something like this. And all you would do is you can turn that input on and off by tapping on it. It goes away. Tap on it again, and it comes back up over the top of whatever video or pictures you got showing up on uh, your Switcher Studio iPad. I hope this helps you understand how to do it, and have a great rest of the day.